This conference will now be recorded.
Hey everybody, it's Tammy D again with another special vidcast for the Safe Space podcast, and I'm glad you're joining me today. We have been talking a lot about over the years about protection. As a matter of fact, I've had some of the top trust people on this podcast before to talk to you about how important it is for you to have at least a basic trust and to protect your assets, even though you may think that you're not rich enough to need that. Actually, everybody does. And my guest today is an accomplished attorney. I think, Scott, are you headquartered in Austin, or are you all over the place? Yeah,
Yeah, no, we have our offices there in Austin, Texas for the last 9 years.
for the last 9 years, he's been battling the creepy, weird people in Austin. Okay, I come from Texas. Okay, full disclosure. And Austin is considered a little bit of an outlier with the rest of Texas. But
It sure
anyway,
is.
it sure is. So Scott is the founder and principal of Royal Legal Solutions. He was a litigator, one of those bulldog attorneys that you see on TV going after insurance companies and other bad actors out there. And so he brought this sort of skill set into helping investors and syndicators and people like that avoid some of the lawsuits. And I will tell you, he's going to talk about this. There's a very high percentage in the world. I mean, if you live in California like I do, there's a 1 in 10 chance of getting sued anyway, no matter what you do. But if you're in real estate, chances are you're going to get sued at least once in your lifetime. So we're going to talk about what he does to help protect your assets from those inevitable lawsuits. So welcome to the program, Scott, and just tell us, how did you get into this world?
Yeah,
Not what your parents did to get you here. Okay, we don't want to hear that.
yeah, I wouldn't know anything about that. I got into the world of real estate from being in actually when I was in law school. So I bought a transmission and auto repair shop while I was in law school and ran that and flipped it, the building and the business to be able to graduate from law school without debt. And that's where I fell in love with real estate originally. And then as I was actually working as a litigator, suing insurance companies, as it turns out, insurance companies that are great at collecting premiums and even better at denying coverage, especially when claims get expensive. We would proceed with lawsuits against them, and then I was paid as a litigator to go and represent my clients there. But I would take all the money that I made from the firm and then just continue to invest in real estate. Because real estate was always my passion. I love doing it. And in fact, I started making more money in real estate than I was being an attorney. And so then I left actually being an attorney for a period of time as my bread and butter, day in, day out, what I was focused on. And I was just working on my real estate until I accomplished my financial freedom through real estate investing and was living the good life of what I wanted to do then. As I go and join in with my real estate investing groups and meetup groups, people would ask me, hey, Scott, what are you doing for your asset protection, your estate planning, your tax, and your insurance? And I would start to share with them about what that was. And slowly but surely, there was, quite a few people that were wanting me to help them put together what I put together for myself. And one of them said, hey, well, why don't you go on this new website called biggerpockets.com and then do a podcast. So I ended up doing a podcast on Bigger Pockets about asset protection in real estate. And then, I didn't think anybody would call or reach out to me, but, the day the podcast aired, and for the next 2 years after that, I was getting 30 phone calls a day from people that were looking for asset protection. So I said, well, in the very beginning of that, I said, well, listen, this is actually a huge need. This is what, God's calling me to do, is to be able to come in here and to be able to help these people to grow their wealth and protect what they've worked so hard to build. And it's been my pleasure to be able to grow a company, Royal Legal Solutions now, that we're about 40 members, a number of attorneys, paralegal staff, and we help about 2,000 clients in all 50 states. And the way that we're able to do that is in a very personalized type of approach, but using best practices. After helping so many clients, we've really dialed in. Here's the best practices that somebody in your situation would want to do, whether you're in the multifamily space, whether you're in the commercial space, whether you're in the single family home space, and how do those all need to integrate together? So how does your asset protection impact your tax strategy, which impacts what you're going to be doing with your investing, but also what are the insurance needs if you put in some types of these strategies as well. And that's what I'm happy to be an open book here today, and talk about anything and everything there. I'd say the best place that everybody really needs a lot of help with is typically in the asset protection space.
Absolutely. And I want to talk a little bit about that, because while asset protection and estate planning are tangentially related, they're not exactly the same thing. So can you kind of define for us the best way to think about asset protection and estate planning? They, like I said, they go hand in hand sometimes, but they are different.
Yeah, so your asset protection is where you're going to be looking at being able to, using anonymity structures like revocable grantor trusts or land trusts to be able to hide your assets. So that way, if somebody comes looking to sue you, it looks like you qualify for food stamps on paper. Right? If you need to produce documents to a bank to get financing, you're able to do that. But if somebody searches public records, it doesn't look like you own anything. Right? And that's what we want. That's how you stop lawsuits from getting filed in the first place, and it takes the target off your back. Second thing we're looking for from an asset protection is compartmentalization of the assets. So that's either using an LLC, or what I like to use is a series LLC, because that allows you to compartmentalize every asset into its own bucket. So that way, if there's a lawsuit against one asset, they can't go after any of the other assets. I like the series LLC because it allows me to create an infinite number of LLCs on my desktop for free, and I only have one entity to maintain, one EIN number, and one bank account, one set of accounting records to do it. And I can use that series LLC in all 50 states. Typically want to form that in either Delaware, Texas, Nevada, or Wyoming, where there's charging order protection, but then I can use it anywhere else in the country and feel safe and confident to do that. I'm defending about one lawsuit a month using these strategies over the past 9 years. So I'm very confident in their effectiveness of being able to do that. And lastly, what you're looking for in your estate planning is, well, great, you've done a great job of creating wealth. You've done the smart things and making sure that you don't lose what you create by putting asset protection in place and preserving that wealth. And lastly, what you need to do next is, well, how do I pass the wealth on, right? How do I use this, what I created, to pass this on to my family? And the best use of tools to do that is like your living trust, as well as a pour over will. You want to use the living trust because it avoids probate. Probate makes everything go through a court process where everything's public, and where people will start to either attack your estate, saying that you owe them money. Guess what? You're not there to defend yourself. So those are very hard to defend. Or they'll go after whoever inherited the money, because now it's part of the public record. So if you have a living trust in place, you're able to protect your family from what can happen through the probate process. Apart from the fact that with using a living trust, they can control all of the assets immediately. If you go through the probate, which means if you just have a will, or if you don't have anything in place at all, now the court is making the determination of who controls the assets and where do they go to and when they can get those assets. So if you really want control, you really want the protection in place, you need to protect that during your life with your living your anonymous trusts and your LLCs or series LLCs. And then also after you die, you need to protect your family with using the living trust as part of your estate plan to avoid probate, keep things anonymous, and allow your heirs to control the assets immediately by avoiding that court process.
Well, yeah, and you mentioned that those are all really valid points. But what gets me is, I have a friend who's an estate planner in Beverly Hills and works with some really high net worth people that you think would know better, but she tells me that probably over 50% of all the people that, everybody should have some kind of estate planning in place, but of all the people she works with, she's surprised how many people have nothing in place. Is there some sort of psychological reason why ordinary people wouldn't see the benefit of this and not do it? I mean, is it death,
Well,
the big D?
yeah, it could be. I think it's typically it's just around people that maybe just don't have all of the information, right, or don't have all the accurate information. So I had a friend of mine who lost over $3 million in real estate from a single lawsuit. He had really great insurance in place, right? But what he didn't understand is insurance is very limited, right? Insurance only protects you against accidents. So when he had a lawsuit based upon another deal he was getting into, they sued him, and it was for breach of contract and fraud. Well, guess what? Everybody gets sued for fraud when they get sued, because they always say you lied to me, right? I mean, everybody lies in lawsuits. That's just how lawsuits go, right? So insurance never protects you against those, and he was surprised by that. And he ended up losing over $3 million because of that. And all he would have had to do was put a single LLC in place, and he would have been $3 million richer, in my opinion. The same type of thinking, I think, also applies to estate planning, where people don't want, they're like, well, it's going to be really hard. It's going to be really painful to be able to put in this estate plan and to think about that. It's like, nope, it only takes about an hour. Working with trained professionals, at least on my team, we have a process that's so dialed in and so exact that you're able to get all of that stuff knocked down in about an hour, right? So I think that actually is the biggest hurdle that we've tried to cross in both these areas, Tammy. One is to be able to make it where it's really affordable for people, but it's also really streamlined, and that it's getting that very limited amount of pain, right? Making things really easy to manage, making it really easy to understand, making it really easy to do it, has helped us be able to help so many clients all over the country.
Right. So this is really not something that's just for the guys that own 1,000 doors or something. This is something that really, how could this work for a person, for example, that is just getting started in real estate, and they have one or two little rental houses that they have? What are their chances of getting sued? I mean, what are the things that they're facing, the potential perils that they have as a real estate investor?
Well, any deal that you're getting into, right, you're signing contracts and making representations. So if anything goes wrong in that deal, that's what you face liability for, is people are going to sue you for breaching contracts or any type of fraud from any type of email you sent. People say, well, I'm honest, so I don't have to worry about that, right? That's not the case, right? Remember, people lie when they go into lawsuits, right? What you need to do to protect yourself against those is you need to operate through what's called an operating company. An operating company is a company that does everything for you, enters into contracts, hires contractors, sends the emails, but it doesn't own any assets. So that way, if anybody sues you regarding any of those deals that you're looking to get into, they can't harm your credit score and they can't take any of your assets, right? Because that LLC operating company steps in to protect you from those people. Now, the other thing that you need apart from an operating company is an asset holding company. An asset holding company, like a Series LLC, for example, allows you to compartmentalize every asset you have for free. So say that grandma slips and falls on the staircase on one of your rental units. She can only go after the equity that you have in that one property. She can't go after any of the other properties, and she can't go after you personally. Now, we're going to hope that your insurance steps in to protect you, right? But remember, when it's really bad claims, the insurance company can deny coverage on their own. They'll just say that you should have known that accident was going to happen. And then all of a sudden you're left having to defend yourself in the lawsuits, and the insurance company doesn't protect you there. So over the course of your real estate investing lifetime, the data we've seen is that over the course of a real estate investor's lifetime, there's a 95% chance they'll be involved in a major lawsuit. So we believe that it's
95%.
95%. You're going to be involved in a major lawsuit. Because think about it. It's all the contracts you're into with contractors. It's all the tenant and lease agreements that you're entering into. It's all of the emails that you're sending. It's potential accidents on your property that could be resulting from either your tenants or other people, or it's a breach or any type of lease issues that can come up, or warranties of habitability or other issues that could happen. So it's like the percentages are very, very high over your lifetime. Now, when is that going to happen? We don't know. Right? So we always come to the table saying, well, the best thing to do is to have the castle of protection built around you. Do what's appropriate for where you're at. Don't overspend on what it's going to be. Spend the appropriate amount of money to build the appropriate level of protection that you need for where you're at currently. And then grow that protection as you grow your assets. So you can start at one place that has the right foundations and then grow that protection over time as you scale your business.
Right. So you're not saying that this is something that can't be changed once you put it in place. It's not set in, it can evolve, right? Your asset and
Yeah,
protection plan.
it's even better than evolve. Like think of it like Lego blocks. It's that whatever you put in place now, if you have I think that's what we do that's really different, right? Is we're able to say, well, we'll put in whatever Lego blocks that we can right now that makes sense, and then as you grow, what we're not going to do is change anything. What we're going to do is add more Lego blocks onto it because that's what is appropriate now. Anybody that has stuff that's already put in place, it's not a problem. Almost always we're able to incorporate that into our existing structures for what we're able to do. So you don't have to think about like, oh, I already have some, so can I redo this the right way? No. There's always a way to be able to get to the right foundations set, and we recommend that everybody do that sooner rather than later, regardless of what your level is, because even if you have no assets, even if you have nothing, you still have a credit score. And that credit score is your access to capital and your ability to do deals. So you need at least one LLC to start building business credit. So that way you have more access to capital there, and to protect your personal credit score so that doesn't get hurt in case there's a lawsuit.
Wow. So, I think another thing that may be causing people not to invest more in time and effort looking into this is that people assume, and it depends on the state, that you have good domestic asset protection, right? That your homestead, for example, is off limits, that your 401k is off limits, that your insurance accounts are off limits, but that's not the case. I know, at least especially here in California, I think we're capped out at $300,000 for the home, which it doesn't even buy you a storage shed in California. And so you don't have as much protection against things as you may think. Is that correct?
Yeah, so what we play is the game of saying like, well, what are you going to rely on? Remember, all those things that you're talking about are protections are just laws that are in place right now, right? Those can change any time, whether you actually know about them changing or not, right? So the best thing to do is, in my opinion, is to not rely on those, but instead be able to exercise more control. So asset protection and structuring LLCs, for example, with states that have strong charging order protections, give you the same protection as, say, like a homestead protection, but it's unlimited, whereas homestead protections are limited, right? So to me, it seems foolish or short-sighted to be able to rely on those issues if you are a real investor. Those laws are to protect just the average Joe. Business people use LLCs and they use trust structures because they're that much better than just what the average Joe is using.
Yeah, and I know you have a limited time in any one of these subjects. You could do 2 or 3 hours on, because it's to me fascinating. I've always been interested in asset protection and keeping as much of your money away from prying eyes as possible. You touched briefly on the privacy aspects of doing this. Those are really very important, I think. People that want to not be found, there are ways to do this where it makes it so unattractive to other lawyers that they don't even go after you at all once they see the level of protection that you have. What are some other reasons that you think people should be more interested in this? I mean, as far as, what are the motivating factors? I mean, is it?
Yeah. I mean, I think what you find here too is like, one is that you see that anonymity is exceptionally important, because if it looks like you qualify for food stamps, when somebody does the public search, they don't sue you, right? The average lawsuit is going to cost you between $25,000 to $50,000 in just attorney's fees, and that's if you win, right? So what you really want is a way to say, well, how do I actually stop the lawsuit from getting filed in the first place? The first thing you want to do is make it look like you don't own anything. The second thing you want to do is to make sure that even if they sue you, they get very little. They only get to that one asset. So when they come in and say, hey, is this somebody that I should go sue? What you want them to look at is, well, we don't think there's any assets here. That's a big question mark about like, well, we're really uncertain about what we can get even if we win this lawsuit and we spend our $25,000 on attorney's fees and then hope that we win. Because we can't find clear ownership of the assets. Even if you currently own the asset, there's a way to disguise it to make it where it looks like you don't own that asset. Then there's also the LLC protection that says even if they were to proceed with the lawsuit, and even if they win the lawsuit, they get very little. And so through that mechanism, what you do is as you make it where it makes a bad business decision for anybody to sue you. Now, the trick is to be able to establish all of these protections in a way that everybody can use, right? So, and that's affordable. And that's what I think really separates us out. But apart from having insurance and tax in-house with the asset protection, we're the only firm that has all three together in-house for that, with a single point of contact. We also are extremely focused on how easy it is to be able to use these structures. It'll be for ease of purpose. It'll be as if you only own a single LLC. That's true for your banking, your accounting, and your yearly maintenance of the entity, regardless of how many properties you get. The taxes for the entity are all it's treated as a disregarded entity. So it's all passed through for tax purposes. So it's as if the entity doesn't exist for tax. So that makes it extremely flexible for any of the tax moves that you want to make. And that we do everything based upon objective-based fixed price. So our goal is to always say, we're going to take you from here to fully protected. This is what it's going to cost you up front, and this is what it's going to cost you each year. Is that inside of your budget? If not, then let's talk about a lesser form of protection, because remember, it's Lego blocks. There's something to be able to put in place now and something we can grow into over time.
And the point is, don't do nothing, just thinking that it's going to be too expensive. You don't want to leave yourself completely unprotected. And I know we only have a couple of more minutes. One thing a friend wanted me to ask you, though, and I thought this was kind of interesting. If you live in a state like California, which is pretty much hostile to asset protection, and it doesn't give you, I mean, I think it's over $800 now to even have an LLC here, which is insane. Is there a way to get that LLC outside of the state, even though you're domiciled in California? Can you do a Nevada corporations, for example?
Yeah, my understanding of the rules as they relate to the franchise tax board, which enforces that $800 per year franchise tax on LLCs, is that the California law is structured such that franchise tax is for any LLC anywhere in the country, right? Technically, they're able to enforce that per the laws as they're currently written. The only way to protect yourself inside of California with your California assets and all of the other assets that you have everywhere throughout the country without being exposed to that franchise tax is going to be using a Delaware statutory trust. The Delaware statutory trust is a trust structure, so it's not subject to that $800 a year franchise tax. It's very affordable, just like the Series LLC. It's infinitely scalable, just like the Series LLC, but it just happens to be a trust. And because it happens to be a trust, that you're then able to avoid that franchise tax.
And not just the franchise tax, I just think that the protections in some other states are better too, on top of that. So thank you very much for that. Now, finally, how can somebody who wants to describe the process that a person that says, okay, Scott, I realize I have a few apartment buildings, I have no protection, I need to get started. What am I going to do when they call you? What is the process going to be?
So we're very much of an education-based company, right? We believe that the more educated our clients become, the better off the clients are and the easier our job becomes, right? So what we do is we say, come to royallegalsolutions.com, click Get Started at the top of the page. What that's going to do is take you to what we call our quiz page to be able to provide us the basic information we need about you to be able to have a productive conversation, right? When you scroll down that page, you're going to see our best instructional videos that has all the things that I talked about today and even more detail, as well as diagrams of our structures and our best information that we have there, right? Our goal and intention with that page is to be able to provide you some of our best resources to get you as most up to speed so we can have a productive first conversation with you. So the best thing to do is go to royallegalsolutions.com, click Get Started at the top of the page, and then fill out that quiz and connect with a team member and read the assets and the videos on that page to be able to get up to speed with how do we operate, what does it look like, et cetera. So if you go to royallegalsolutions.com, click Get Started at the top of the page and fill out that quiz.
That's perfect. And also, I love the 5 pillars of asset protection. You touched on anonymity, liability, there's separation, and compartmentalization, which is your series. You were talking about the series LLCs and stuff, and insurance, and making sure that you have the right risk management or risk protection in place. So when you have that, I think you get to keep more of your money. But we didn't get to touch on a lot of the tax aspects of doing these things. There's a lot of tax benefits as well as just the general asset protection. And I'd love to have you on some other time and talk more about it. In the meantime, though, I've been preaching this for years, Scott, that even people like me that don't have a lot and as far as assets need to do this. You need to do the basics at the very least. So go to Scott's website. It's royallegalsolutions.com, and then take this little quiz, and then he'll reach out to you. And I would love to have you back on again, Scott, to talk more about, let's drill down into one of these and give me some case studies of people that are investors that have actually saved their skins by doing this.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. I mean, we can talk about that from on the tax side of things, the asset protection side of things, the insurance side of things. Happy to come back, Tammy, as many times as you need me to be able to help fully educate everybody. So
thank you. And I think you're familiar with my friend Teresa Kuhn. I think you were either on her program at one point.
Absolutely.
Or
yeah.
Yeah. She's a great person. And I hope that you guys can get back together and do some of this. She's a big believer in this kind of thing. So thank you very much. My guest today was Scott Royal. Is that your real name, though?
Are you Scott Royal Smith? Yeah.
Scott Royal Smith. Scott Royal Smith from Royal Legal Solutions. Go there and check it out and let me know your experience, everyone. Thanks so much for being here, Scott, and we will definitely talk again.
My pleasure, Tammy. Thank you.
No problem.